Well, hello there, Lake Orion and surrounding areas. I'm Matt Pfeiffer, and I'm standing here with my good friend Matthew Gibb.
Hello, Matthew.
And we are on our adventure of documenting the unique things in Orion that not everybody's familiar with. So if you've caught any of our previous episodes, and this is kind of a show that is still being born, we'll say. But in our previous episodes, we did a day at the lumberyard, which was a really cool video, and we had a lot of great feedback. And then we did a day at the art center. And we explored what the Art Center's impact is on the community, and that was all revolving around Dragon on the Lake. And so we're going to continue this show. We're going to be doing things around Orion.
So we're here at the Orion High School, but not the one that today's Dragons go to.
Not the one that I went to either. This is pre-me, so it's really old because I'm middle-aged at this point.
Yeah, and it's been called lots of things. It's been called the Ehman Center. It's been different levels of school. It's not just been the high school. It's been a junior high at one point. So this building has seen its days, and hopefully it's going to see some more days. I think that's what we're here to talk about, right?
That is what we're here to talk about. And it's a beautiful building. And when you look at just the entryway itself, the architecture, we aren't building buildings that have this kind of entryway and this kind of architecture. And I've had I've been in the building several times. We used to do, Santa used to come here, and after the lighted parade, we would come and people could, interact with Santa and have cider and hot cocoa. So I was in here for that. I was in here when there was some talk or some removal of the wood, the center of the gymnasium, which is now, I believe, at the high school.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's at the high school.
So there's been cool stages.
It's been very cool. At one point, it was in tax sale. At another point, Debbie Mosheri is part of the Mosheri. She was going to try to do offices here. At one point, the township was looking to potentially buy it and restore it. If you all remember, the village moved into the senior center here in the village, and then the senior center needed to move somewhere, and we thought about here, and then the community built that beautiful facility on Joslyn. So the Ehman Center, as many people know it, and Lake Orion High School. And so here we are, Matt, and it's kind of is the lowdown, right?
Yeah, well, this is a lot of people. We get a lot of questions around. I know you do, I do, and I think anybody who's involved in our community gets a lot of questions about what's happening here, because it's been many years that there's been talk of different plans, as you've referenced a couple of them. But the good news is the time has come for things to start moving forward. And so we're going to share a bit about, we're going to walk through, so you're going to get to see the inside, and we're going to share, Matt, I'm going to be asking questions. Matt's going to share a bit about what the plan is for this site. And I think you're going to be excited to hear it. I think it's going to be another great addition to our downtown, and another great addition to our town in general, all of Orion. So I'm excited to get back in there and to hear you have this way of painting a nice picture, and I look forward to having you entertain us with the vision.
Well, I think the first thing that people need to realize is this is a historic preservation project that's also going to bring something that's really needed in our community. Doesn't seem like it sometimes, but we need more housing in our community. We need more places for people to live, and at a price level where workers and people that are in our workforce every day can really afford. But at its core, this is a preservation project. So why is it a preservation project? Well, it was built in 1926. It was funded at a time in our state where this beautiful archway, and you can see the seal of the great state of Michigan is put right into the school. This project is about preserving our past, and this project is about getting the credits and the effort together so that we don't lose the beauty of this facility, but at the same time we turn it into a place where people can live and work and really be part of our community. So you ready to take a look?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I love the fact that on this end of town, along with the lumberyard on the other end of the village, they're the bookends of our village, and very cool projects, very unique and different from each other, but what a cool addition to the fabric of downtown Orion, or the village of Lake Orion, as we like to say. So let's get inside.
You want to go inside first? Let's do it. Let's go to the gymnasium, and we'll check that out first.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, good.
We are now standing in the historic Ehman Center gymnasium, and again, I've been in here before, but what a cool space. I love the wraparound. I think that's really unusual and cool. The nice stage.
It's our own version of Hoosiers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Little old time basketball here,
Wow.
and everything else. And it's in really good shape. It looks a little bit dusty, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But,
a little
but it's in
bit
good
worse
shape.
for wear, but no, I think it's fantastic, and I can't help but point out that this is where the dragon was in the wood here, and that's been removed. That's what we were talking about earlier. That's now over at the high school. But outside of that, yeah, as you look around, I mean, this floor is almost refinishable. Almost. It'll be a challenge, but
You're the expert on that. You would know for sure.
well, we'd want to do it. We'd do a test area, and I know just the guys to do it. Yeah, this is really cool. So when you say that this is a historic preservation project, and we're standing in this room, that you can just imagine what's happened here over the years, and so I love the fact that we're going to restore and keep this. But what I guess talk to me a little bit about historic preservation and what that means for this building and for this project.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to think of dances and other things that might have happened
Yeah.
here. But, historic preservation, it has two sides to it, right? So a lot of people have said this project's been talked about now for about 3 years. When I mean this project, Kyle Westberg, who's a local Lake Orion guy, has his office in Pontiac, and restored the Strand Theater and converted the Sears building into loft apartments in downtown Pontiac, and has done so many really cool historic preservation projects that are good for his company and good for his passion, but also good for the community. So Kyle, Brent, his brother, his team have jumped in here. So people have heard about that, right? They're like, well, something's happening there. It's taking so long. So what is the historic preservation part of it? Well, that's how you pay for it all, right? So you would say, well, they should come in and save the old Ehman Center, the high school, and fix it all up. And you say, well, okay, who's going to write the checks? It's kind of like our lumberyard tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big lift. So this is an example of that. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation has all of these rules and guidelines, and they're good ones. They say if you're going to use tax credits, which they are here, and what that means is there's a tax credit you can get for preserving history. And so much like people would like a tax credit for a heating credit for their home, works in a very similar way. You get a credit. The more history you save and the investment you do to bring it back to life, then you get those credits. So what are the rules? Well, the rules are when it comes to things like a gymnasium, because of the historic significance, because of what used to be here in the painting and the floor, the rule is that you preserve it. So this part of the project is going to get brought back to life. Now, maybe not with basketball shoes and high-top Converse and all those things, but it's going to be repurposable so that we might be able to dream again a little bit. Say, well, what would we put in here, and what would you do here?
So you're so good at the dreaming and creating, painting a vision. What can you imagine happening in this space through this development?
Well, the idea of it at first is to make it a public space, meaning that it would be offered for groups to use it, and you can see that. You can see how we could have events here, and we do have a need in the community. I think some of you told me the other day that Blessings in a Backpack and other organizations are always in need of space to be able to stretch their arms a little bit.
The Lions.
And the Lions and all of that. Yeah, so, as far as making a use for it, it could certainly be something that kids would bounce basketballs again, but you can see that there might be a community theater, or there might be something like that here, and people say, well, why don't you know yet? Well, the first step is, you've got to figure out some of the sagging ceiling, and you've got to figure out the floor, the original kitchen that supported here. This was also the cafeteria for the school at the time. How does that get redone? And as we'll see as we walk through in a few minutes, we're turning the classrooms into loft apartments. And so this becomes a public space that supports apartments that some of them are in the lower level here. So it's a big project.
Wow, but how cool? How cool could that be? And the theater, I mean, it's obviously set up for it. It's a small stage, but we really don't have a theater that I can think of in our community for that kind of thing. What a cool idea to have maybe a local players group maybe be born out of this development and be able to do small plays in this space.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
cool.
it's great. The Thespian Club at the high school does a play every year at Wildwood.
Right, right. The outside.
And
Yeah, yeah.
you're going to be our new treasurer. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
winning
Thank
that
you very
primary,
much.
and we're
Yeah.
excited about that, Matt. Uh, there's just not a lot of resources for us.
Right.
So we've got 20 Front Street, which is a great little place for music, but you can't have a play there. You can't have a musical there. And one of my favorite movies as a kid was Back to the Future, and this is the setting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
This is when he
It
was
really
playing
is.
with the band, and so can you recreate that? So the Ehman Center, the high school, is going to come back to life in a different way, and this is kind of where it all starts.
Oh, it's really cool. I'm so excited to see. Do we have? I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. Do we have any kind of sense of timeline?
The complexity of doing this is what sometimes slows it down. So
Right.
you've got to get, the state of Michigan has to say yes, and they've got a certain contribution that they have. And the historic preservation tax credits all have to be followed, and you have a process for that. And then you've got, as a company that's going to do it, they have to have their finance plan in place. And then this building actually has a lot of hazards to it, not just the condition of it, but there's a lot of asbestos. There's a lot of environmental remediation. And so all of those things have to be planned. And the way our economy's gone and everything
Yeah.
has been like, whenever they think they're just ready to get going on it, there's been some little anomaly. The state changes their budget, the rules change in Washington. And so the Westbergs are pros at it, and they've done it with such success in other communities that they're like, it's gonna start this year. But the start will be not noticeable. The doors will all be closed because it'll start inside here, and,
Okay.
with the remediation of what we're doing. Why don't we go and show a classroom so that they can see kind of like the condition up in the main hallway. We can talk a little bit about what preservation means and how those are going to turn into apartments where you can live.
Yeah, let's do it. So, does it look like we're in jail, Joe? So we're in one of I guess one of the old classrooms, and there's a wall that's been opened up here. This would be an apartment potentially?
Well, we're in the lower level,
Okay,
in the
yeah.
kind of the basement, but you can see there's windows, the daylight windows. And
Uh-huh.
so, this is example of what's going to happen here. So this was used at some point. It kind of looks like a after-school care room or a home ec room or something. And this is not new construction. This is just opened up. But what the purpose of taking over the facility is the exterior will be preserved. So we're going to have the historic preservation of, oh my gosh, there's the 1926 school. But when you come in here, this will be 2 apartments. So
Okay.
this space will be divided in 2. There'll be an access that comes in. And this provides 2 loft kind of studio style apartments that would be down here. And you say, well, gosh, who would live down there? A lot of people would live down here. It's pretty cool space.
You've got windows, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool space.
Yeah, yeah.
And as we'll see upstairs, we'll look closer upstairs. So guess what one of the rules is of historic preservation?
What's that?
Is those windows have to be preserved and restored.
Okay.
So we're not going to swap out brand new windows in our old block basement apartment. It's going to be the original metal windows. So they'll be restored and they'll be made new, but they're going to be somewhat of the original. And so the idea of a historic preservation project that is financing how to deal with this building instead of just tearing it down and losing the history is you say, well, let's take the basement area, we'll divide it up, we'll restore the things that we can from an exterior preservation, and then we'll turn this into 2 really cool loft apartments that are down in the basement. And so even down here, you're going to find that this will become new again and there'll be life in here.
So besides the restoration of the windows and maintaining that, and we've talked about the exterior, can they modernize the rest of the feel in here? Can it feel like or do they have to, I guess, what are they going to incorporate? These lights can all be changed.
The lights can
That
be
doesn't
changed.
have to
Yeah, no,
stay the same.
The lights
So they
be
can
changed.
modernize the space, but it's obviously going to have that historic feel and vibe.
There's a certain percentage of preservation that you have to have. Things like these old fixtures are not something that would get saved because remember, there's also an aspect of that particularly the federal government really wants you to be lean and green, right?
Right,
And so
right.
these fixtures are clearly not lean and green as far as energy efficiency.
Right.
But you're right. And so it's not like, oh, well, let's preserve the peeling paint because that's from 50 years ago. No, that all becomes modernized. And it's not just a block wall. The walls will look like a modern apartment, and it'll have flooring.
Okay,
and
good.
it'll have those
So they could
types of things.
insulate,
Right.
drywall, so,
Yeah.
which would make it a
Yeah.
comfortable space. I mean, once you do that and you put a really nice floor in, then then you're gonna feel, even below grade or halfway below grade here, it's gonna feel like anywhere else in a home. It's gonna feel great.
Right, and I'm sure you and I have talked about traveling a lot. So you walk through a city in a different part of the country, even here a little bit, but not as much here in the Detroit area. But there's always, oh, somebody lives down there. They've got those little half windows.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this becomes. And so it's a really good question, though. People think that historic preservation means that everything's going to look like 1926, and it's not. When you stand in this space in another year or so, this will look like a modern Soho apartment in New York, except on the outside, it's going to look really cool. It's going to look like 1926, and the entranceway, all the cornices, and that big arch we saw, all have to be preserved and restored and brought back to life,
Thank
to their
God,
original
that's-
life. And so you'll be in a cool Soho apartment inside of a historic building and walking distance from the downtown. And
God,
so-
I might have to
That's
reevaluate my residence. This could be really cool. I would love to see the upper ones, which will probably be more where I'd want to be because,
Yep.
I like a view. So can we go check out an
Go
upper
check it out. We'll talk a
classroom?
little bit more up there. And
All right, well, let's get upstairs then.
Upstairs.
Thanks. I feel like I'm back in school here, I mean, for you, probably getting pushed into a locker, I was probably the guy pushing you in. Just
Yeah.
kidding, that was not me, but this is super cool. So we're standing on the second floor of the Ehman Center, so there's another floor above us, this is just one of the hallways, and what you referenced earlier is that they're gonna, the lockers are gonna stay, and these hallways are gonna basically stay. They'll be cleaned up, or?
Yeah, so this isn't, when you do a preservation project that is also designed to make money, and people have to be real clear that this is not we're not restoring the little house on the prairie here so we can all visit it like a museum. People are gonna live here.
Right.
But it's a cool place to live, wouldn't it be? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really cool. So
I'm digging it.
So the preservation rules is that the width of these hallways has to stay. And so if you start tearing out walls and redesigning and making things different sizes, you can do a tiny bit of that, but really then you lose all your credits, you lose all the package. And so you start to get a sense of, well, what does it really take? Like, we're gonna restore the lockers, and you see them, up and down the hall here. And so what does it really take to restore all of this? It's okay, well, they're here, and this is cool, the old wood, it's all here. So when you say restore, that means all of this gets brought back to its original life. So there's a cost to that. There's lead paint here, there's asbestos in all of these tiles. As you'll see in a minute, the floor, it's just one layer after another.
Right.
And so the rules are, okay, well, let's give you some tax credits and some financeable things to do that. Let's make it more advantageous so that you can have different sizes of places that people will pay rent for. And so that's what it is. And this will be the hallway of people getting to their apartments.
So they're gonna have lockers in their hallway.
Yep.
That would be, you probably don't even know this, but I'm trying to think of how could they use it, utilize it, or would it just be there for looks?
It's part of the aesthetic of the preservation of where you're at.
Yeah.
So it's good. But let's take a step into a classroom. We'll talk a little bit more. And I would suggest we go right through there. How about that?
Well, you know what? You're leading this parade. Let's do it.
All right.
So this is one of the classrooms, and how cool. You can totally imagine this being an awesome loft apartment. Really high ceilings, the windows are huge and beautiful. Nice fireplace. This is really a cool space.
Well, you think of the way that schools used to be built. Now, if we walk down to our beautiful Lake Orion High School on the south end of town.
Careful.
It's a beautiful facility, but it doesn't have tongue and groove built-ins and, upper level things, all of this. On the other side of the camera right now, there's a beautiful brick fireplace that was used, still functional to heat the place. It's just constructed differently. And so it already has the high molding, as you said, the high ceiling. And so you say, wow, this is a really cool room. And you say, okay, well, let's re-envision now this. This will become one of the 31 loft apartments that will be inside the original high school building. And so this becomes an apartment. And then, well, what do you need to have someone live here? Well, because it's high ceilings, there's been some talk of, well, would there be a loft level here that would act as either a primary or principal sleeping area? That'll be part of the design element. You can do those types of things. It doesn't hamper the historic preservation side of it.
Okay.
But what do you have to save? Guess what you have to save? All of that stuff pretty much has to be saved. Does it have to be? It goes into your percentage of what you're doing as a total preservation project. And so, yeah, the intent is from the Westbergs is all of this will get reincorporated. So we were in here before, and you can imagine, sorry to walk away from the camera, Joe, but you can imagine that there would be kitchen here.
Right.
With sink and dishwasher, and you're looking outside, and behind you is this beautiful area for your kitchen. And it kind of creates a cool little spot, right? And then you've got the ability over the fireplace in the back, that now you've got a living area, and maybe you build a loft area for a sleeping area, and now you've got a space here that is a really cool one-person, two-person loft-style studio unit here in the village. It's
one of my favorite things about you is you have such a good way of painting a picture, and you're right. I mean, that's the perfect spot for that. That definitely makes a nice kitchen area. You've got your entry area. This could be a really functional, probably 2 people could live here comfortably, and what a unique space. Can I get on the list now, or?
Well, the market study that was done is everything to say, well, is it worth it? I mean, this part of the project and what we'll talk about outside is close to a $21 million project. So this is no small undertaking. And the market study said, well, you should do it because as soon as you put for rent on anything, it's going to sell out like immediately. Yeah, so the demand would be, and the difference is now Mosheri in our town is building some high-end things on the lake, and those are going to go for like $5,000 a month, so clearly out of my price tag. But somewhere here, this would probably be $1,700 or $1,800 a month as a base start, which sounds like a lot, but for those that are renting in our community, they're realizing that's pretty good, actually.
Not anymore. Yeah, I think
it's pretty good.
And the fact that you can walk. I mean, you've got a grocery store right up the street. You've got downtown, so you've got all the amenities of our awesome village right here. You're right off of 24 to get out anywhere you need to go. I have no doubt they are going to sell this out very quickly. And I don't know, who knows, by the time they get it done, maybe I'll be ready. This is really cool.
You never know. And the one thing that people always ask me, they're like, well, but I like to shower in a private little room with the door closed, and where's all of that going to go in these? And so the school building is filled with little things. Like that's an old teacher's room that would have been part of the classroom environment here, that all of those rooms will be incorporated. So some of these units will have a separate room that will be a bigger unit. Some of them are intended almost to be 2 bedrooms. I know Kyle Westberg, who's the main owner and developer, is looking at some of the units upstairs that would say, well, could you incorporate even a separate bedroom in a room like that? And so every bit of space in the building is going to be repurposed in some way. And so some units will be bigger and smaller, and it'll vary, but it's pretty cool.
It's really cool. I'd like to see the upper level. Can we
Well, that's our last stop inside,
Okay, cool,
and I
cool.
think it'd be cool to see that, and you can see some of the other elements like the chalkboards, things like that.
Yeah.
And so let's squeeze it in. Let's get there and there.
All right, I'm in.
All right.
Let's do it. Okay, we've made it to the top. Well, not the top.
yeah.
I'm trying to convince you. You haven't wavered yet about getting up on the roof. We're not
Maybe
doing
on the
that.
next, maybe on the next trip.
Okay.
The next show.
So we're at the top level in a really brightly lit classroom. I'm still call it a classroom, but soon to be loft. And the amount of light in here is awesome. I mean, to have all that glass, and you can absolutely imagine this becoming a cool little loft. Yeah, this is fantastic.
So this is, it kind of has all the elements, right, of what we've been talking about. So when people say, oh, you're going to preserve the high school, we are. And so this becomes somebody's unit, somebody's living space that they rent like an apartment. It'll just be a studio apartment. It'll get built out to have all of the facilities. So it'll have a kitchen, and it'll have a bathroom and shower. And this is the space. But all the things we've been talking about, like the chalkboard, is something that will stay, because that's part of the National Trust and the guideline of the State Historic Preservation Office, and everybody that would say you're going to do preservation and get tax credits and other things for it, that's what we're talking about. So when we say save the chalkboards, the whole wall is a chalkboard, right? So that stays. So whoever's going to live in this space is going to have these built-ins that will all be fixed and restored. We'll have all these lockers. I guess this becomes closet. I mean, who knows, right? So all of this becomes a restored element. Now, what happens on the floor? This is all new. The floor becomes new, and all the plaster that's falling from the ceiling becomes new, and around these chalkboards becomes more modern dryboard, those types of things. But maybe behind your kitchen here, you've got all of your cupboards and your pantry, and it's already built in.
So this is the kitchen corner in Matt's vision?
Yeah, well, not mine.
That makes sense.
The Westbergs who've done this before, I mean, whenever they walk through, they're like, yeah, that's what you put there. But I love this space, like you said, because of the light. Yeah. It's got the original tile that's kind of like that hip wall there. It's very cool. You put the right floor down. You're a flooring guy. You put the right floor down and the right lighting.
Slip up my card if you
go.
You guys talk about floors. No, this is really cool. So this would be a smaller, probably in this whole project. This is a little bit smaller. So there's a range of sizes.
Right.
This will be a one person, or I mean not one person, but just a loft. It won't be bedrooms, obviously, built into here.
Yeah, this one you would perceive as being just a studio-type loft apartment here inside the building, with all of these little elements. And the cost of it, Matt, is you start peeling the onion. So when the township looked at getting this center, and Joe was telling us earlier that On TV even got offered and looked at it, which is super cool.
Yeah.
When we were looking at it, Drew Ciora was buying the old Village Hall to bring in Lockhart's Barbecue, which is now 313, and that was going to springboard them to go into the church on Church Street there, which is now the Village Hall. And we were looking for a senior facility. We looked at this, and the estimated cost back then, this was 2007, 8. We're talking a little bit, I'm starting to get gray, I guess, a little bit of time ago, was in excess of $2 million just from the environmental side. And so, again, these things aren't, they took it over, they put paint on the walls, and they threw some flooring down. We're talking millions of dollars of remediation goes into a project like this to bring it back to life. And some people said, well, then why do you do it? Why would you save all this history? Well, why wouldn't you save all this history? This is what we're about, right? And plus, it makes for just the cool places that we all want to live to do it. So it helps to pay for the project, it helps to be cool, it helps all of those things, but it can never be lost that to do those things just costs a ton of money, and it costs a ton of time. So so this is the inside of Ehman Center, what is called West Village. It's on 55 Elizabeth Street here in Lake Orion, and the timing of it from this perspective, and we're going to stop one more visit before the end of our show outside just to talk about the final phase of it.
Okay.
The timing of it is it's going to start pretty soon. They're going to start with the interior of this. You're going to see next year will be more of a construction effort. We're going to show you outside where the building that's really going to pay for everything is going to get built. There's going to be another 57 units that go outside in a different building that will look almost exactly like this. But
really?
But the trick is You can't build a new building as part of this project that looks exactly like this one. People would say, well, why wouldn't you build it to look exactly like it? Well, in the great American government world of historic preservation, then this is no longer a preservation project if you mimic or emulate the same facade. So you have to do different arches, you have to do different things. And so that building's going to be very similar, kind of like a transition building. And we'll show you where that is. All of that will get kick-started sometime early next year. And people say, well, when can I move in? It's probably going to take about 18 months or more, 2 years probably, before we really get people.
So I've got 2 years left before I need to sell my house. And
2 years of lake living for you.
I think one of the things that you mentioned that I think is really important for people watching and for the community is that the amount of money that it costs to preserve. So we just had a big, we're in the process, you're in the process of a major project on the other end of town, and we've got the Masheri project, and the fact that it costs so much limits the amount of people who can do the work, not only because of finances, but because there aren't people that just have money to burn. People are doing it because there's going to be a payback at some point. And so this project is going to take a lot of money, but they can monetize it in a way that over time they're going to get a financial benefit for going through that process and add a great fabric to our community. So I just wanted to highlight that because you mentioned it, and I think about people who are upset about historic homes that aren't being preserved. Well, nobody came and said we can restore that and profit from that, and that's how it works. The government can't afford to just put money into these. Our taxpayers wouldn't be happy, and so we've got to find that public-private kind of partnership where it makes sense. And I'm so thankful that we've seen the vision with the lumberyard and with here to make it happen in our town, which is a ton of money and property. And so when people get upset about a house or two that are considered historic, there's got to be a way for it to work. It can't just happen because people want it to happen.
So a lot of people were concerned about the project itself, what's going to be here, how much traffic, and those are very good concerns. So we have to make sure that everybody is really on the same page about the impact of something. And but what you're saying is the other argument, which is, well, why would we help them so much? So like the village granted density. What that means is how many apartments can you put in this project, right? So the Westberg said, well, we need at least 91 units, and the compromise was 89, because you couldn't go any lower, because it becomes math. It's like, okay, if I have 89 apartments to rent, this is how much money we can charge to pay back, because there is no benevolence out there. If somebody going to walk in and say, I love your community so much, I'm going to spend $21 million just to beautify this. So then what's the alternative? And people would say, we should never do that. We should never give them the density or never change the parking requirements for somebody. And then you say, okay, fine. Well, guess what happens is you own it, village. You own it, government, wherever it is. And so what does that mean? Well, I just told you, 15 years ago, we were estimating over $2 million just for the environmental cleanup before you could do anything. Well, guess what would happen? If the village owned it, they'd have to tear it down eventually. Guess what they have to do before they can tear it down? They have to get rid of all the asbestos. So this would have cost the village bankrupting millions of dollars to inherit it. So in that whole argument of we should never help support these developers, they make too much money. Well, what if the developer says, well then, fine, here you go. That's what happens is that you get stuck, and stuck means it sits here in blight for decades, or somehow you write a giant check.
Right. So there's that side of it, and I see firsthand now when people are upset that we make decisions that we make, but we have to look at the overall community and the finances, and then there's the other side of the people saying, why don't you restore every historic building and keep them? Well, it's a great idea, but somebody's got to finance it, and the math doesn't always work. And so I think it's important for people to be involved. You guys, one of the things I love, I was involved in the design charrette when it came to talking about what's going on at the lumberyard. This is going to be more of a private project, but the fact that you guys do open the doors. But a lot of times people don't walk through the doors. And if you want to be involved and if you want to have say, you can't just do it through social media. I mean, you can, but you're not going to be effective just yelling and complaining. What you can do is get involved. I bet you there's boards, I know there's boards that you guys have that are unfilled. There's boards we have that are unfilled. And I think the people who are so passionate to get mad and to come to meetings and yell, or to yell on social media, would love to see them turn that passion into helping us. Because I think what I'm learning is the more I'm involved, the more I understand the complexities and the difficulties that we face when we want to make these changes. But I also am working with a lot of great people who have great ideas that together we can do some. And to have these two major wins in our small village is extremely exciting, and I applaud you, the village, the ones who supported some of these efforts. I think it's going to be incredibly important to our future, and kudos.
But why don't we wrap this episode of it? We'll go back outside where it's a little warmer because the sun is, even though it's coming through the windows, it's
damp
kind of chilly in here.
Yeah.
And we'll show you the next phase and of what the Westbergs are going to do, which is they're under contract to buy the Lake Orion Administrative Office building immediately to the south. And so let's go do just a couple minutes so we meet the deadlines of our show and just say what that's about.
Sounds like a great plan.
Good.
Let's do it. All right, well, as glad as I am to get out of the dampness and get warmed up a bit, which we've got today. What'd you drag me out here for, Matt?
Because it's so beautiful out. Can you imagine this weather in late October in Lake Orion? It's awesome.
Yeah, I can actually.
Yeah, it's great. Living as a vacation. All right, so real quick. So the project is not just the preservation of all of this, including the old smokestack will stay, which is kind of a cool feature. And that's just a aesthetic feature to look cool. The hill that you see behind us here, remember on the inside I said to make this work from a money standpoint, like how do we afford to do this?
Right.
They've got to build more apartments. So they're going to build the same style apartments, but they're going to put a new building that starts where the hill is. And those that know the community, there's the parking on top of the hill up there off Elizabeth Street. Parking will all stay up there. They're going to build that kind of into the hill around that side of the property. And so there's going to be, if I do my math correctly, 58 more units that will go in a building out there.
Okay.
And so that part of it. And this becomes parking. And this, there's a lot of parking spaces you need to put 89 units of people in the school and in the new building. And so this part of it will be landscaped beautifully, and it'll be green space, and it'll be very nice because people that build projects like this want their residents to feel like they're living in a really cool place.
Yeah.
And that's what'll go back here. And so you see a building that will look very similar to this, but will be just different enough that that we don't get in trouble with the State Historic Office that we imitated a building. So it's pretty cool. So back here. And then the last big thing is this, Matt, is this will probably air right about the time that it's happening. But the Westbergs, West Construction, who are doing this project, are under option to buy the school just to the south here, to the school administrative offices. Our new superintendent is super excited. They're going to buy your beautiful facility on Joslyn Road, the Orion Center. On TV is going to stay there, which is great, that unbelievable studio that we have. So the Westbergs will buy this as part of their project, and then the schools will move there, and then your services will move to the GLAC. And I think we owe it to the community to do a show about the GLAC soon, so maybe we'll do that. Yeah,
I think that'd be a good, we're getting there. Things are moving forward there. And this has been an issue for the schools for a while, that the admin building isn't quite, I mean, look at the size of this, look at the size of our school and our school system. So I think it's going to be a win-win, because as those dominoes fall, it gets everybody what they need to be able to offer better service to our residents. And I'm excited about it. What is this space gonna, what's gonna happen here?
So this project will be how we defined it today. That project's gonna be it'll probably be more like stacked townhouses.
Okay.
It's not gonna be a flood of a bunch of housing. It's not gonna be a low income housing project. It's not gonna be any of those things that people are afraid of. It's gonna be a mimic of what's here. That's going to go there, and it's going to be some more needed housing for our community, all within the density of the community. The property right now is zoned schools, so it has to be rezoned. So about the time this show will come out, the village will be holding some meetings about the rezoning of the property.
Got it.
But here's one thing that it really helps with is you have to maintain stormwater and all these things when you develop property. Again, people that write checks in our community have to be doing that too. Where's all the stormwater going to go? Where's all of the drainage going to go? And this property allows us to do that way better than without it.
Okay.
Before, it was going to be, quite frankly, I don't want to tell the Westbergs, it was going to kind of be Band-Aids and duct tape of how we accomplished making sure we met all the regulations on how to manage drainage and stormwater and sanitary things like that. And now this property allows us to do that really more than needs to be done. And so it's really a huge benefit that way. It's a benefit for the schools. And I would just close with this from a personal perspective of years ago, when Drew Sior wanted to bring Lockhart's up from Royal Oak, and we didn't have a place for him. And then the township made the right decision to build the Orion Center and allowed us to move out of the Village Hall property now. And the Village Hall then moved from where Lockhart's 313 was to there. All of, like you say, dominoes. Look what a community we've been. Like every step of the way, we've supported the leadership and the decisions to say we can keep acquiring and building and restoring and preserving in this community we're building. And now we're going to save the history that started it all. I think it's just so cool, man. To me, it's just so cool.
No, I'm super excited about the impact it's going to have. I'm a village resident, but I'm obviously very township, born and raised. And when we see what you guys are able to do to preserve and to make our town even cooler, I couldn't be more excited about it. The lumberyard, I would encourage anybody who's watching this and heard us reference the other couple of shows we did, check them out, learn about our art center and learn about the vision and what the plans are for the lumberyard. This is an exciting time in our community, and I know again, there's always going to be naysayers. I encourage you to get involved and to really learn why decisions are being made and how they all intertwine and how it affects our overall community. I think you'll agree that we are on a very, very strong path to maintaining our history, maintaining the coolness of our town while making needed improvements for all involved. So I am glad you're the man at the helm at the DDA. I think you're the right guy at the right time, and I know it takes tons of volunteers. And again, I would encourage people who like or don't like what's going on, get involved. We all need help on boards and that. You can reach out to Matt, you can reach out to me, we can point you in directions depending on your interest and experience to get involved and actually be a part of the great things happening here in the village of Lake Orion and Orion Township.
Well, I think we've talked enough. That is Lowdown Matt and Matt Speak, whatever the title is, you send us your suggestions. But for now, we hope you enjoyed a little snapshot of the new vision for the Ehman Center, and we will see you at the next stop on this tour. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
always a pleasure, sir.
Yeah.
All right, take it easy.